Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
If you have kids or pets, you know stains and odors in your carpet and upholstery are inevitable. But the experts at ChemDry can help. ChemDry removes odors and stubborn stains by sending millions of carbonating bubbles deep within your carpet. ChemDry lifts dirt, urine, and stains to the surface to then be extracted away, giving you a cleaner and healthier home. Call 1-800-ChemDry or visit chemdry.com to connect with your local ChemDry and learn about special offers in your area. That's 1-800-ChemDry or visit chemdry.com today.
Hey, yo, what's good? Check it out. This your boy, Elder Sensei, one half of the legendary Artifacts. You are right now in tune to my man, Tim Einenkel, at the library on rapstation.com. Let's get it popping, y'all. Artifacts. Peace, Elder Sensei. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my man, Duplicate. Sensei.
The Motos project, featuring Elder Sensei's latest album, was and is called Rogue Agents. It dropped late last year, but is an album that should be talked about and blasted from your speakers for a long time. I had a great honor to talk to Elder Sensei, the lyrics behind the album, and I have a great honor to speak to the man behind the beats, El Spitover, producer Louis Duplicuts Reyes. Duplicuts, thanks for joining me on the library with Tim Einenkel.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tim. I've been a fan now for quite a bit, especially since you guys started rocking the album and playing cuts off of it. I've been listening to, a lot of your interviews, and in particular, I really dug the one with Crooked Eye. I'm a huge Crooked Eye fan, and it's cool because a lot of your interviews, I've mentioned this before, it's like you should do like a inside the rapper studio because it feels like a genuine conversation. It feels like someone, you, the person who's interviewing the artist, it feels like you've done your research, like you actually know about the people that you're interviewing. So, I'm definitely honored to be with yourself being interviewed. It's awesome.
So, the Motos project featuring Elder Sensei, I think a lot of us want to know, how did you and El the Sensei link up?
Well, a mutual friend of ours, Soul Wallace, she introduced us, and she was like, hey, if you have some beats laying around, she knew I made beats, and her and El go way back, so she was like, hey, if you have some beats, send them over to El, have them check them out, and so on and so forth. So I put together a batch of beats and sent them on over, and he liked a bunch of them, and one thing led to another actually pretty quickly. He ended up rapping on about 4 of the beats and was actually kind enough to pull in Craig G to rap on one of the beats.
Craig G, Elder Sensei, Duplicuts, listen. Hey yo, it's Craig G, Duplicuts, Elder Sensei, we smash. It's classic hip-hop, yeah, we get it drastic. Get your ass kicked if you ever think you're testing us. I got my mic, right now, get your weapons up. Lyrics, skills, the way they come is effortless. Verbally, I smash an MC, just leave it left to us. Look a little closer, you'll never ever get the touch. Switch gears on an MC, now watch them hit the clutch. Rip them up, send for sanitation to come pick them up. Power from my verses have enough strength to lift a truck. Duplicate, duplicuts, break boys. Who or what? Treat them like Cypress Hill. Shoot them up, cause we always represent hip-hop to the fullest with skills. We don't need the guns and bullets, so everybody put your hands up and make noise. Craig G, Elder Sensei, and the break boys. Let's go.
So he sent me back the vocals, and I kind of tinkered away on my own in my own lab. I was living in Vermont at the time, actually. And the EP, which was mixed, recorded, and mastered in 2008, didn't come out until 2009. And we didn't actually meet until after the EP was released. It was on iTunes and the whole deal.
Oh, wow.
By the time he and I met. Yeah. So when he and I met was when I moved down to Jersey in 2009. We hit it off immediately, and we started hanging out, and just outside of music, not even just hanging out in the studio, but going to shows together. And I'd give him a ride to the airport, he'd come over to my house, and we'd have dinner and the whole deal. So we actually started bonding, and I think that's why, if you listen to the EP, and then go and listen to the album Rogue Agents, that's one of the reasons why it sounds different, is because the dynamic between MC and producer became a lot more intricate. Like, we really got to know each other, and I really got to know what made him tick, and he got to know what made me tick, and we kind of developed our own little shorthand in the studio, and when we talk about beats and rhymes and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons I think, you know, if you listen to those two back to back, they sound different. And it's not to say that, you know, the EP is whack in any way. It's definitely different. There was a mix between hip hop and drum and bass, but then by the time we got around to Rogue Agents, you know, we had ideas, we had a scene going, we had certain threads we wanted to follow and certain points we wanted to hit on. So yeah, that's, you know, the story of how Elle and I met originally.
Cool. And I was actually going to ask this a little later in the interview, but you kind of touched on it a little bit. When producing, as a producer, I guess when producing a beat, how important is it to, like, I mean, for Elle, the sensei, for example, how important is it to you to actually, I guess, know who's going to spit on the beat? Just because, like, I'm wondering, like, if there's a guy who has let's say, for example, an MC with a bassy voice, I imagine as someone who creates music, you probably then would have less bass in the music, right?
Right. Wow, you listen to music, don't you, Tim?
I do.
But no, you do have a point. Keeping it, you know, relative to Elle and Rogue Agents, if you notice, with Rogue Agents, there's a lot of horns in it, right? There's, like, if you listen to I don't know, On the Rise, and if you listen to Pass It Off, and there's a lot of brass and major plate. There's a lot of brass in the album in its entirety, and one of the reasons is because, aside from the fact that we wanted to make, like, a statement, right, and brass, horns, you know, trumpets and trombones and saxes, they kind of had this I'm going to make a statement sort of a sound, very celebratory type of a thing. But aside from that, Elle's voice tends to sound very big, very in your face. I recently read on a blog, like, Elle the Sensei does bully rap, so to speak. I didn't realize, you know, there was such a thing as bully rap. I'm like, Elle's cool, he's not a bully or anything. But I think what the point they're trying to get across is that his voice has a lot of presence, right? So I think the brass is something that also has a lot of presence and complements well. It goes well together, right? And then at the same time, I also use a lot of keys. For some reason, I think the texture of his voice sounds really good, whether it's with a Rhodes or a Hammond or even just a grand piano. It just, depending on how it's played, obviously, it sounds really, really good. There's a certain, when I'm mixing his vocals, there's a certain compressor settings that I use, because I know that when I bring in the bass, his voice is going to be so big that the bass will get, you know, drowned out if I don't mix it right. So actually, there's times when I'm mixing his vocals where I take away a little bit of the bass on his vocals and mix it just right. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you listen. If I do it the rightest way that I can, it's hard to tell that I've taken bass away from his voice. But I do, to make room for the bass line in the songs and room for the bass and the kicks and all that kind of stuff. So you're right. Just to answer your question, there are certain ways I need to approach the beats I'm going to present to him, because I know the texture of his voice, and that goes back to the relationship he and I developed, where we got to know each other, not just as artist and producer, but as people. You know, I kind of got into his head, figure out what he likes, and, you know, things of that nature. Oh,
cool. And going back to the EP, I mean, do you feel that? Do you ever feel that you would have loved to redo the EP again? You know, again, post meeting him, I guess. I mean, do you ever look at it and be like, oh, it would be so much different, and I would have done this, and this, or you just like let it, you know, it happened.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just thinking of that recently. Only because we plan to do a remix EP to Rogue Agents, and I was thinking, man, what if, you know, I go back and take the original EP remix the entire thing or redo it, so to speak. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm happy with the way it is. I did a little bit of that with Rogue Agents. The last two songs, if I remember correctly, are actually remixes of the first EP, two songs from the first EP.
Right, yeah.
But I think it would be cool to go back to the EP, knowing what I know now and us knowing what we know of each other, and reinterpret it, so to speak, even if it is the same music, but just do a remix down of the music and maybe add a couple of elements and switch some things around. I think it would be interesting, especially in this day and era where you have all these different reinterpretations of original things, you know, like with movies, they keep doing the same Batman over and over, they keep doing the same Spider-Man over and over. Well, why couldn't you do that with, you know, with music, a reinterpretation or a reimagining of a piece of work, you know? So I think it would be cool to do that.
That's dope.
Yeah. We gonna try something. We gonna try this. Stupendous mouth off. Right hand and not the southpaw. Able to rock glass jaws. Stature, lean. 6 foot dream. Stance in the crouch battle ready for my team.
I want to go to the, we're talking about Rogue Agents, and I want to go to one of the first songs that you guys, you and Elle kind of quote-unquote chiseled during the recording process of the album, which was On the Rise.
Yeah. Immortals. Part 2. Yes. More Jersey-ish. Duplicuts. Elder Sensei. Let's go. Immortalized, revered. Lyrics are commandeered, necessary and flawless. We sip coffee and out of here. Me and Duper like beer and piffery, special delivery. Favorite Decatur, mini specifically.
How did that track come together? And also, as a producer, what did you want listeners to get from this track?
Man, for me, that's one of my favorite tracks. One of the reasons is because it was the very first song that we decided to do. I think, and I always say this, Elle, I'm super fortunate to work with someone like him, because when I approached him about doing Rogue Agents, he hadn't even heard any of the tracks that I had done. He was just like, yep, sure, sign me up. Cool, let's do it. Like, he didn't know where I was at mentally or what direction I wanted to go in artistically. He was just like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So one of the first tracks that he heard, like the new batch of beats that I was making, was On the Rise. And it's funny, Elle has a certain laugh, and I'm not going to imitate it because, first of all, I think he'd be, you know, upset. But he has a certain laugh that he'll do when he's into something. Okay. And when he did that laugh, when he was listening to the beat, like auditioning different beats, and he heard that one, and he did that laugh, I'm like, oh, I think I got him with this one. So, and the cool thing was, I didn't frame it for him. I didn't say, okay, so on this one, what I want to do is X, Y, Z. You know, some of the beats, I would kind of give some direction and then just let him run with it. Okay. Others, I would just let him do. I was like, just do you, do whatever you want to do. And that was one of those songs where I was just like, okay, you like it, go ahead, rock with it, do whatever you want to do with it. The only thing I told him was, like, I wasn't going to do a scratch hook on it. You just got to, you know, just write a hook, you know, just do whatever you want. And I think it came out beautifully. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, that song really did set the tone for the rest of the album, because when he heard the beat, he was like, dude, this doesn't sound at all like the EP. And I was like, yeah, I don't want it to sound like the EP. I want it to sound different. I wanted to make a statement to say, hey, that was the EP, guys. Okay, we introduced ourselves to the world. Now watch how we'll flip it to something else and give you something that you weren't expecting from us. So
that's cool. And you just mentioned, you said, you know, On the Rise, you wanted that to make a statement. So I'm just curious, but On the Rise is not the first track of the album. Let's Get It is, featuring Set Out X. So I'm curious, with that being the first track of the album, what statement were you making there?
So it's funny, because On the Rise was, not only was it the first song we recorded, but because it has this, like, boisterous big opening, right, with the horns. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the first song on the album. It's going to be great. We're going to come in, gangbusters, bust the doors open, make the statement, cool. And then as more songs were recorded, I started having second thoughts. I'm like, do I want to make it the first one? Do I want to make it in the middle? Do I want to put on the rise, still in the beginning? Who knows? So then the version you hear of Let's Get It on the album is entirely different than the version that was recorded as far as the music goes. That was actually one of the last songs I mixed for the album because I got Sadat to do some vocals, right? I was like, hey, I need a hook. You don't have to do something that rhymes. You can just be picking up L. Actually, I want you to talk on the hook. And this was while they were recording the XL album, right? So he goes in there and he's like, this is L, my man Duplicuts, my man L. Y'all gotta watch, y'all coming in. You know what he does on the songs. So when he's doing the hook, I'm like, oh man, this sounds cool. This sounds good. Actually, wait a minute. This sounds like it could be the introduction to the album because huge shout out to Sadat because he held us down the album. He appears several times throughout the album. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this the first song on the album. And then there's an interview that kind of like an interview / breaking down of our songs that Elle and I recorded just before the album came out. We did like a couple of videos. And so I took some audio from the videos that we did and put it at the end of that song. And it was funny because I didn't tell Elle about that song literally until the album was just about to come out. It was like literally 2 days before the album came out. Nice. And I was like, hey, are you by your email? He's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, I'm going to send you something. He's like, all right, cool. So I sent it to him. He's like, yo, when do we do this? And I was like, yeah, I just kind of remixed it about a week ago, and I got Sadat to do some. He was like, yo, this sounds great. This sounds awesome. So yeah, originally On the Rise was the first song, and then, like I said, as the process continued, we recording our album, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to make it the first song. I think I'm going to make Let's Get It the first song. So I redid the whole beat. The rhymes are still the same. The order in which he laid down his verse is still the same. But then I was like, man, I don't have the hook. So I got Sadat to come in once again, and he held us down lovely. So once again, huge shout out to Dottie X for holding us down the whole album.
That's cool, and that's real cool to know that that last part of him just talking is something obviously you created because it actually is one of my favorite parts, I think, of the album, where it's just like it's like totally it kind of like puts the exclamation on the intro track.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was part of the point. Like, it sets you up for what we thought about and what Elle thinks about the album and why you should check it out. And like he even says it himself, hey, not everyone, there's still people out there who don't know about me. This is Dupe, we're doing this album, and, join us. And I think it's a perfect way to start the album.
Cool. I want to talk about the track Major Play featuring Sadat X.
More than 16, spit mean, first team, 32 lines investing, grind, incline, written out for collaboration, maturation, saturating, market that's evaporating, music is aspirating, I don't simply have the patience to entertain or indulge, to listen to what y'all making, me and X be ready, passport, stems, heavyweight, British down in every state, have bait, steady.
El Decente has said that this is a beat that his fan base wouldn't expect to hear him on. So I'm just curious, was it, from your point of view, was there any hesitation to create this beat? And as a producer, do you have to consider what the MC's fan base is used to hearing them on, or do you not really consider that?
Damn it, you and your good ass questions. I think initially, and when I say initially, I mean going back to the EP, I wasn't thinking about Elle's fan base. And so that's why on the EP you hear straight ahead hip hop, you hear drum and bass, you hear there's a song on there that's just strictly an instrumental song. There isn't even any rhyming on it. But with Rogue Agents, it was definitely a lot more strategized. I thought of his fan base in the sense of, I do want them to hear him on what would quote-unquote be a traditional LB, but at the same time, let's challenge them a little bit. Not necessarily alienate them, but let's challenge them a little bit, throw them off. Like, as soon as they hear the beat, they're like, oh, wait a minute, L's going to rap on this? Okay, let me stick around and see what the heck is going to unfold, because I've never heard L rap over something like this. So, to answer your question, yes, I was mindful of the fan base, but I didn't let that box me in entirely and completely. And so I think that's why Major Play, in my opinion, works so well, because no, it isn't a beat that you would immediately think of Ella Sensei when you hear it, but at the same time, when you hear him flow on it, in my opinion, when you hear them go back to back, it's like, okay, this works. I mean, I'll tell you what, when I was in the studio and I heard those two rapping over it, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be one of my favorite tracks, and the album's not even done yet, but this is going to be one of my favorite cuts on the album, because when you're in the studio with them, you watch L write, you won't hear him rap. You'll just hear him, you'll see him, writing and bobbing his head up and down. With Sadat, you can hear what the flow is going to be, but he's not saying the words, right? So it's almost like a mock rhyming that you hear him. So you hear him go, so you're like, okay, well, what the heck is going to be saying? Because I hear the flow, but I don't hear the words yet, right? And then they go into the booth, and when they're spitting it, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, this is going to be insane. I was like a kid in the candy store, literally, when I was in the studio. I was so freaking happy. But yeah, to answer your question, like I said, I didn't let their respective fan bases completely box me into what I was going to do. But I did decide to kind of like, okay, I want to challenge a little bit their fan base, not alienate them, but just challenge them just enough.
When you're creating a beat, how important is it for you to, I guess, agree with the lyrics that the MC is spitting?
That's a fine line to walk, right? So you want to, as a producer and just as a creative, you want to allow the artist to feel unencumbered and say, okay, you know what, I can't really, the same way that I was able to freely create music should be the way that you should freely create verses and lyrics and your side of the songwriting. At the same time, there are times where, depending on, and of course, depending on who you're dealing with, but depending on the subject matter, as a producer, executive producer, you need to be able to gently guide, if you will. I've been fortunate enough that, when you're dealing with a Kool Keith, a Sadat, or JR, Ella Sensei, Internal Quest, they're professionals to the point where I can just give them a couple of sentences. If I indeed have an idea for a song, I'd say, they'll say, oh, so what are you looking for in this one, Dupa? And I can just say, you know what? Like, take Pass It Off, for example. That's a perfect example.
L, you got next? Nah, let me pass it off. What you up next? Nah, let me pass it off. Yo, who up next? Jersey never raps off. John Robinson, Duplicuts, set it off. Partridge, read it, don't forget it. Also got the BX and Far Rock in my spirit, don't get it twisted. Tri-State round, Grace kicking up ballistics. Tundra like Blizzard, microphone wizard.
We were going to record that. I told them, hey guys, I have an idea for this. Let's do like a back and forth type of thing, especially on the chorus, where you guys are just passing it off to one another. And I literally said passing it off, and L was like, all right, cool, got it. And he ran with it, and that ended up being actually the name of the song. I was planning for it to be that way, but that ended up being the name of the song.
Your brain if you couldn't bring the fans pleasure. Man, it's another rhyme blitz. What? Don't try to figure the styles, God. We switch it up. L, you got next?
Nah, let me pass it off. Yeah, you up next?
Nah, let me pass it off.
Yo, who up next? Jersey never raps off.
I queue up next, so let me set it off.
For me, I find that if I give just enough direction, it allows for room for them to be themselves, while at the same time, the ship is being guided, so to speak, in the right direction.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about "Pass It Off" because it is actually, I think, one of my favorite. I have many favorite tracks on this album, and I'm sure they're going to change tomorrow. But "Pass It Off," I think, is just like, it just everything about that just seems. It just works. Like like L passing it off. Like to J.R. Robinson, to Internal Quest, but then also the beat is they're all seamless. Can you just talk about the creation of that track?
That, as far as the beat goes, there's a song called "Losing Out" by Black Milk, featuring Royce the 5'9".
Okay.
So the beat is actually an inspiration from Black Milk. When I heard that Black Milk song, I'm like, dude, what the hell were you thinking? What were you on when you made this? So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I got to make something right now. Like, literally, when I heard that song, I'm like, okay, I got to make something right now. So I wanted it to be something that was, like, as soon as you heard it, I definitely wanted no one to mistake where we were from. Like, I literally wanted to sound like an East Coast track. And I wanted it to be in your face. I wanted it so that when the beat came in, you were like, oh my God, wait, what's that? Like, there's tracks that you hear that you can hear in the background, and you're grooving with it, it's mellow, it's cool or whatever. And then there's tracks that, kind of stop you in your tracks. And my idea was for that song to be one of those songs. And I was like, guys, I just want you to go in on the beat. Like, there's no huge otherworldly, highbrow, conceptual type of thing. I just want you to go in, do what Jersey MCs do best, literally, and just attack the beat and annihilate it. And I'm super fortunate and super happy with the results. I think everyone came through with flying colors, and it was the first time that I've worked with JR, and I've met him before, but I've never actually had the pleasure of working with him. And tell me, when I got the vocals back, I told them, I'm like, the texture and the tone in your voice, I think it's fantastic, and the way they play off of each other, especially on the choruses, I think it worked out. I think it worked out great. It was fantastic. So yeah, that's how the beat came about as far as the inspiration behind it, and then the direction that I gave the guys was just go in. This is a little break from the espionage spy theme that we're doing in the album, and we're just going to go in. So, and I'm super happy with the results because they came through with flying colors in my opinion.
Sorry, I cut the grass to expose pythons. You can't tell me this when I'm rocking with icons. So everybody in the game now second nature. They was stern, I don't really know what you blaze. Catch me on the mic, MP or the faders. You ain't from Jerk, then I owe you no favors. Amber Rose Dome, clean off the top, shacking 92 out of boy beating.
What track, I guess, from a production standpoint, what track best represents the mission of this album, Rogue Agents?
From a production standpoint, as far as the idea and the idea that we wanted to convey with the album, I'm going to have to say it's a title song, Rogue Agents, because I think production-wise, it's a great marriage with the lyrical content. Like, I think the beat literally sounds like something sinister, sneaky, but at the same time it's heavy and very defined. I think that, to me, it's one of my prouder moments as far as from a production standpoint, because sonically I think it does achieve what the subject matter is about, which is spies and espionage and crawling on the grass and taking out your opponents and, mercenaries and that type of thing. So as far as that goes, yeah, I think the title track to the album really does pinpoint and narrow down what the subject matter is all about.
Invading every town, immortal second round, undercover with sound. We roll gauges now, hired mercenaries, fire when necessary. We leave them dead and buried. We roll gauges now.
Speaking of Duplicuts, the producer behind the Immortals Project, featuring Elder Sensei's latest album, Rogue Agents. Duplicuts, I want to go a little away from the album, but get more and kind of give the listeners a chance to understand what you do,
Cool.
and also understand more, just kind of more about you. So, in the MC world, a lot of criticism by MCs are to other MCs. All right, the lyrics are soft, their flow is soft. They're doing the same, as Cannabis says, same different laxative. So I want to know in the producer world, what is the criticism? And this this is all professional, but what's the professional criticism of other producers? I mean, like, about their beats. Like, what do you see that being?
In the producer world, I think a lot of time, I think the producer world is like it's the same, only different, right? So there's a bit more, in my opinion, of a brotherhood in the producer world. There's a bit more of a, especially now, I think with the advent of social media and internet, there's a little bit more of a sharing of ideas. But as far as criticism goes, I think, unfortunately, you're always going to have, and I think now it's even more pronounced, the Me Too type of thing where, you'll have a hot sound at the moment, or someone's using, triplets or a particular snare, and one or two songs happen to race up the charts with that particular style or sound, and now you have everyone, chasing that trend. You'll hear a lot of, when you're listening to a song, and you get into that 16th bar because you have some funky little sound effect in the background that rises, right? So it'll go, and then it'll go back to the beginning of the bar. It's like, okay, well, I heard Just Blaze do that like 10 years ago. Okay, and now this person's doing it, and now that person's doing it. Now everyone and their mama on these trap beats does that sound. So I think when you chase certain sounds or trends or whatever, I mean, it's cool to be inspired by a trend, but to chase it, I think you really need to define what your lane is, what your identity is, professionally, sonically, as a producer, so on and so forth, and just try and stick in your lane. I mean, we did On the Rise in 2010, for crying out loud, wow. And we're blessed that it comes out in late 2013 and kind of catches on in 2014. And I think the reason it can catch on and resonate with people is that we weren't trying to chase and do whatever was, I don't even remember what was hot at the moment in 2010, but, we just did what we wanted to do. And, L, not too long ago, was on tour with Sadat, and he's like, dude, I perform that song all the time, and people come up to me and says, hey, that's one of my favorite tracks. The video was great with all the letters and all the words. So people are, I know, based on what he's told me, people are actually listening to it, and it's resonating with them. And I think it's great that we were able to achieve that without, chasing trends. So I think, to answer your question, to me, that's one of the biggest criticism as far as the producer world goes, where, unfortunately now you have a lot more biters in hip-hop in general. I mean, not just in the producer world. It's like, it's perfectly okay to, just grab someone else's name and run with it. I mean, I don't know how many Youngs there are. There's so many, and Littles. And I mean, at one point it was cool to, like, if you were in the same crew, like you had Little C's and Little Kim. That was fine because they were in the same crew. Right. You had the Jizza and the RZA. That's fine because they're in the same crew. But apparently it's okay to just jack someone's name now, and it's okay.
Just kind of curious. Well, one, do you have a? There's two questions here. One, do you have a favorite sample that you I guess maybe a go-to sample, And 2, what is your favorite instrument to include in your beats?
One of my favorite, well, to answer the second question first, one of my favorite instruments as of late as of late in the past 2, 3 years or something like that, has been the Rhodes or the Hammond organ, because I think it's such an expressive instrument. It could be used to, inspire or inflict pain or joy or confusion or playfulness. I think it's just a very expressive instrument. When I sample, I'd like to think that I can flip it in such a way that, like I said, can evoke different emotions or different ideas. I think it all depends on how it's used and how it's flipped. I will say that a lot of the samples that I use aren't necessarily, well, I should say they're all instrument samples. In other words, I don't necessarily go out and sample a lot of sounds or stuff that cannot be reinterpreted by a band, let's say. Okay. And that's on purpose, because there's a bigger plan for Immortals project down the road. Without saying too much about it, so for example, if you look at what they did with Avengers, right? So they released, they did Thor, they did Captain America, Iron Man, and it all kind of led up to a big bang, which was Avengers. That's the bigger, without saying too much, that's the bigger picture with Immortals project. So Rogue Agents will be one thing, and then you're going to see a couple of other things, and there's going to be a big bang in whatever, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years' time.
Oh, wow.
So.
2 things. Who do you look inside of, for hip hop producers, who do you kind of look towards? And then also other producers that you kind of, outside of hip hop, that you look up to, or your influences?
Oh, good question. As far as hip hop goes, producers whose work I'm really into and who inspire me. Illmind, I think, is one of the illest producers. I mean, no pun intended, but he's one of the illest producers, I think. I mean, when it comes to, from whether it's underground, overground, the stuff that he's doing with Smokey Robotic, I think it's great. The usual suspects, your Primos and your Dillas and Dr. Dre's. But then at the same time, there's like the guys that have put in a lot of work, but just their face just isn't out there as much. Like Jake One. I think Jake One's work is really great. Madlib, Oh No. I'm a huge Large Professor fan. I don't think he gets enough credit. Large Professor, I think, taught a lot of these cats how to produce. Same as your Pete Rocks and DR Period. There's a lot of people, but I mean, for me, in hip hop, top 3, and of course this can change tomorrow, but top 3 would be, I'm gonna say, Just Blaze, Illmind, Jake One.
Nice.
And then outside of hip hop, for me, all time, and there's a newer guy in here, which it's debatable whether I should include him in all time, but for me right now, all time, it's Quincy Jones, Rick Rubin, and Pharrell Williams. And when I say Pharrell, it could be, clearly like Pharrell / Neptunes.
Right. Definitely.
With Quincy Jones, I mean, you're talking about someone who's been there, done it all. You're talking from big band jazz to bebop to the poppiest of pop to hip hop. And then you've got, Rick Rubin. And I mean, who has he not worked with? I mean, you're talking Adele, Red Hot Chili Peppers, LL Cool J, like metal, like hard metal, Slipknot type stuff. And the dude's just all over the place. And then with Pharrell, I mean, he's walking right along that path. I mean, you're talking scoring movies, and he can go from something like Clips to working with Gwen Stefani to back to Snoop Dogg, and I mean, he's really, really doing it well. I think he can straddle a lot of different genres, and he's doing it, from the looks of things, he's doing it very, very well. So.
Yeah. If you were to kind of create a quote-unquote dream 10-track album, kind of in like the way of like Illmatic with having all those kind of producers on it, but you actually are able to pick an artist for each track, which 10 MCs would you choose, and then kind of what do you imagine the mission or the theme of that album would be?
Holy moly. Okay, so this is like my own personal Avengers, basically. Okay, yes, I got it. Aside from the cats I've already worked with, I don't know if we want to include those guys. But for me, top of the list, it's got to be Bahamadia.
I got it him, man, Memphis, the microphone mechanism from inner city curriculum to cut an edge for heads like circumcisions and your mentals on them sliding slow. Basic instincts like Sharon Stone, pockets puffier than combs. Calibers now.
I think for me, that's one of the illest MCs. Lyrically, voice-wise, cadence, flow, breath control, everything. I think Bahamadia is one of the greatest to ever do it. I would say if I could bring him back, it'd be big fun, but he's not available clearly. So I would say Royce, really into what Royce does.
Before Jordan was wearing 4.5, I just looked like this, I just seemed old. But I had to bleed the blood of a for me to record to suffer clean clothes and touch with a king holds. The real estate market is harsh.
Joel Ortiz as well, that's 3.
This is hip-hop. I ain't trying to bring New York back. I'm just a breath of fresh air. That good old New York rap. Slick talk to the track. Come on, who brought that to the game? Graffiti all on the train, get up your name. I don't feel how I used to feel. I'm in my 20s, so
I could say from the newer cats, I've really been feeling what Fred the Godson is doing. I really love his metaphors is incredible.
Ray told me victory's unexpected. They hating on my chain. Misery from a necklace. See my YouTube and hear me spin. No, I'm reckless. First thing I ever selling metaphors on Craigslist.
Again, sticking with some of the newer cats. There's this chick from the West Coast. Her name is Snow the Product. I've been listening to a lot of her lately.
Light skin, long hair, senorita. Rolling up sativa, finally in the limelight. Slides, limes, and tequila. Living like can you keep up? I'm on the beach in Rosarita. Yep, I got my feet up. You want to see them? Pull a seat up, cause we back.
She's been doing phenomenal things. I've been a big fan of Tech 9 for a while, so he would definitely have to be on there.
Follow me all around the planet, I run the gamut on psychology. They can never manage, we do damage with no apology. Pick 'em off the panic, a little manic, cause I gotta be frantic. I'm a gem, cause I'm an oddity. Got all the track, look, I'm grabbing the mama.
I'm bringing Scarface on that too. I'd love to put a little bit of Scarface in there.
We got this whole motherfucker on the mission. Now the whole entire world has gotta try to come up with the quick decision. They claim we
always liked what he's done, and still sticking with that area. I'd have to go with Bun B as well. I'm a big fan of, men, like MCs, male MCs who sound like men, like grown-ass men, So just based on that, I got to put Bun B in there.
I take shots and don't miss. First on your baby mama bucket list. You want some something?
Got to put 3 Stacks in there. I got to put Andre 3000.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, Islam national, underground, thunderbounds, and I stop the ground like a million elephants, a silverback orangutan. You can't stop a train. Who wants to
round it all out? I'm gonna go with Rakim. Gotta put Rakim in there.
Follow me into a solo, get in the flow, and you can picture like a photo. Music makes mellow, maintains to make melodies for MCs, motivates to breaks them everlasting. I can go on for days and days with rhyme displays that engrave deep as X-rays.
And then, it'd be cool to have like an overall theme of, this is where hip hop was, and that's where like your Rakims and your Scarface can come in. Obviously, guys that are legends but are still actively pursuing and refining their craft. So this is where hip-hop was. This is where it currently is. And then, this is where it's going. And then sprinkled throughout that overarching theme, we could do issues of the current day, right? So, like, I think bullying is an issue that has come to light more recently, even though it's something that's always existed. But I think with the talent that we would have on board, I mean, come on, you could address that so well and so creatively, you know, and something like, stuff that people aren't talking about so much in the mainstream, like cutting. I think cutting is something like literally kids who cut themselves, like that's something that we could definitely tackle. So I think it'd be something really interesting and really cool to do for sure.
That's really dope. Oh, wow. So what's next for Duplicuts?
So what's next for me is, for me personally, I'm glad you asked me this. There's a project that I'm working on. I'm working on the music for it, where it would be, if you can think of like sonically and lyrically and the theme of it, it would be a mix between Portishead, the Fugees, and like, I don't know, groove theory, right? Oh, nice. So what I'm looking for is, musically speaking, as far as the production that I'm doing, it really isn't going to be reminiscent of, what people know me for right now, which is Immortals Project. Mm-hmm. You can take some of those beats as far as like hard kicks, really cool snares and thundering bass lines, but mixing it more with, basically, musically speaking, if this makes any sense, when the elevator pitch, right? So the elevator pitch is like pitching someone an idea in 10 seconds and having them get it, right?
Right.
The elevator pitch, I want it so that I cannot pitch it to you in 10 seconds. If you get what I'm saying. So I want you to be able to like really have to sit down and listen to it. I don't want to be able to pitch it to you in 10 seconds and you get it and you understand exactly what I'm talking about. In other words, if someone, now that we know what the Fugees are, it's simple. We get it. But in the beginning, if you didn't know, if someone pitched to you the Fugees, you're like, okay, wait a minute. So the lead rapper plays guitar and sometimes he even plays it with his teeth, and there's a female MC and she sings and they play live instruments, and okay, yeah, I don't get it. Like, if we didn't know them, the pitch would be pretty hard to pitch it in 10 seconds. But once you listen to it, you're like, oh, I get it. So that's what I'm working on right now. So if anyone out there is listening, I'm looking for a singer-songwriter. Doesn't have to be female, although female is kind of like in the forefront of my mind. Can be male, but I'm looking for a singer-songwriter who's open to writing to like hip-hop based beats, but it will, kind of vary from that. So that's what I'm personally working on now. As far as Immortals go, we're getting ready to do North by Northeast, which is a huge festival up in Toronto, Canada, in June. So we're gearing up for that. We're going to have the CDs, the merch, the T-shirts, the whole deal. So we're really, really looking forward to that. Hell hasn't been there in a couple of years, and Canada has been holding us down lovely as far as Rogue Agents go. So we can't wait to go up there and do that. And then for me, going back to me one more time, it's, I'm still focusing on Rogue Agents as far as, kind of getting the music out there. So we've gotten a couple of placements in some skateboard videos that have gone up on Tony Hawk's YouTube channel called the Ride Channel. So if you guys are on Ride Channel, some of our music is all over their videos, and I'm just trying to get, the music placed in more, things like that, like video and film and things of that nature. So definitely, like I said, any singer-songwriters out there, hit me up. I'm on Twitter at Duplicuts. That's at DUPLICUTS. And if you guys want to follow and keep up with what's going on with the Immortals Project, we're on Twitter at The Immortals. We're on Facebook, The Immortals Project. And anything at all you want to find out about Immortals Project, just go to immortalsproject.net. spelled normally, no crazy funky spelling. That's immortalsproject.net. And, from there you can see all our videos, all our pictures, find out what's going on with us and, Sadat and L, because I'll sometimes post up stuff that's going on, even though it may not be directly related to Immortals Project, but because we've worked so extensively together, I'll sometimes post up, news that has to deal with JR or Sadat or L, stuff like that. So it's all a big family affair going on over here.
Cool. Duplicuts, the producer behind the Immortals Project, featuring Elder Sensei's latest album, Rogue Agents. Duplicuts, it's been a great honor to speak to you on the Library of Tim Einenkel.
Hey, thank you so much, Tim. This is a huge notch in my belt, believe me, because I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and I think you're doing fantastic work, and everyone over at Rap Station, and you guys have treated us tremendously well, so anything you need from me, I'm always there for you, man. Thanks again for having me on.
It's very thorough. A shuttle rebuttal, sliding the trouble. I'm never subtle. The soft, the music made the cuddle. Mine is contrived, of live yelling aggression. Man talking depression in corner rap sessions. Quality control breath, past every label test. Time revamp the chant, cadence hitting every step. Bigger and better moves, immortally produced, vocally subdued. The sound you can't refuse. You're confused, we lock, brawl and abuse, overhauling enthused. Your yesterday's news, tools company, chances and paper is laid in front of me. Part 2 in the studio, recording comfortably. Reset and reassess, ready and stay involved. Affirmative action, heavy and on the job. We musically on call, we giving it to y'all. Stay hard, intact and steady abroad. Reset and reassess, ready and stay involved. Affirmative action, heavy and on the job. We musically on call, we giving it to y'all. Lyrically strong, it should be along. My heart and will is in it. No singing the gimmicks. Just bringing a simple method, what it means to kill it. Free spirit, free reign, but never free admission. Compensated display skills on my formidable opponent. Use every component for special moments on stage or in the booth zoning. We burn the candle at both ends. Focusing on make the song smoking and formulating a potion. That's well suited for change to reinsert an image. Uncharted limits, pardon my views and premise. Rappers today are tragic, can't capture the magic. Appreciate and indulge on what it means to have it. I play the part and express myself naturally. Smashing, accurate and all around dashing. Immortalized. Part 2, Duplicuts, Elder Sensei. Let's go. Reset and reassess, ready and stay involved. Affirmative action, heavy and on the job. We musically on call, we giving it to y'all. Stay hard, intact and steady abroad. Reset and reassess, ready and stay involved. Affirmative action, heavy and on the job. We musically on call, we giving it to y'all. Lyrically strong, it should be along.
Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general, the new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who, and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.